Hello, welcome back to the virtual learning. In the previous video lesson, we have learned that uh, Gandhi was successful in getting justice for the Indian sharecroppers, and after meeting Lieutenant Governor for four lengthy meetings, Lieutenant Governor had, uh, initiated or had started a committee in which Gandhi was the sole representative of Indian sharecroppers, and the committee also included landlords, some of the landlords, and government officials. So they were, the committee was successful in collecting huge amount of, evidences against the British landlords for their injustice. All right. So as a compensation, Gandhi demanded 50% of the total amount that they had illegally or deceitfully extorted or taken forcefully from the Indian farmers. But one of the landlords suggested that there could be only 25, and to his shock, utter surprise, Gandhi accepted 25% of the refund. So Gandhi later on explains that why he had accepted 25% of compensation, even though he had demanded 50%. He says that the money is important, but more than money, the prestige, the self-esteem, the self-dignity of the landlords were felt to be more important than the money itself. All right. So the meanwhile, Indians also had learned that they had their own birthrights or fundamental rights. So they learned to be courageous. So though the Champaran episode was won by Gandhi, right? He did not return back to ashram immediately. He stayed back for some more months because during his stay in Champaran, he saw how backward the Indian people lived. All right, so he sought help from his own disciples, like teachers teaching the primary. People with their primary classes, and uh, primary classes were started in six villages. All right, and then he also had the support of his wife and his youngest son, all right, in teaching the people certain things about life, say like maintaining hygiene, one's own hygiene, and keeping the environment clean. All right, so all right, so next one. All right, we are to start from here. During his long stay in Champaran, all right. So when Gandhi, when he first visited Champaran, he never thought that it would take him 7 months, you know, uh, to be able to solve the issues in Champaran. So during his 7 months stay in Champaran, Gandhi kept a long distance watch on the ashram. So obviously, when Gandhi was in Champaran, uh, he would not be there at uh, in his ashram, right? So he kept a long distance, means he, inquired how the things were in the ashram, all right? And then he sent regular instructions by mail and asked for financial accounts. So he used to communicate with the people working in the ashram, all right? And he would also send instructions what to be done, what not to be done during his absence. And then he also asked for financial accounts. So from the accountants how the people, the workers in ashram had been dealing with the finance. Once he wrote to the residents that it was time to fill in the old latrine trenches and dig new ones, otherwise the old ones would begin to smell bad. Now this line is talking about, or is an indication of how the toilets used to be in those early days. All right, there was no proper, like a kind of a room to be called as toilet. It used to be open in those days. So Gandhi, on realizing that open defecament, or doing what do you mean? With no proper toilet, it would cause more sufferings in the terms of, diseases, open defecament, right? So he suggested, or he advised people to dig, uh, you know, trenches. Trenches means it's a kind of a deep hole, and you can make that as a, a toilet with, like a plank above it, so that, especially, I'm sorry to mention this, but I've seen the same kind of toilet being used in Ladakh, right? So in these days now, people in Ladakh have, have built a toilet, or has toilet, a proper toilet, even in, not only Indian, even the Western styles, but such kind of toilets were uh, available in those days. So obviously, when people start using the, trenches, it will fill one day. It would be full one day, isn't it? So when it was about to, become full, Gandhi advised them to cover it with, soil, right? Otherwise, it would start smelling bad, all right? And then it was time for the people to dig a new trenches, all right? Okay, so, and then the Champaran episode was the turning point in Gandhi's life. Now, this line means, uh, if Gandhi had not visited Champaran, he would not have come to know about the real problem of Indian farmers and Indian people, how backward they were living. Right. So it was only because of Gandhi visiting Champaran that he had learned about the real situation of people's way of living, and how the British government were like underestimating the very Indian people, all right? So, because of that Champaran, or the episode of Champaran, it was a turning point in Gandhi's life, all right? So, he explains, what I did was a very ordinary thing. I declared that the British could not order me about in my own country. So, after going to Champaran, when he was served with a notice by Superintendent of Police to quit Champaran, Gandhi could not accept the fact, or digest the fact that, being an Indian, he was asked to leave Champaran. So he thought that it was too much of the Britishers to ask him to leave his own country. So that was the time when he realized that India did not belong to Indians, but ruled by Britishers. All right, and then he says that whatever he did there in Champaran was just an ordinary thing. All right, okay. But Champaran did not begin as an act of defiance. So it means that, Gandhi's visit to Champaran was not to, uh, like what to say, to protest against the Britishers, but he went there to serve justice to the Indian farmers. All right, it grew out of an attempt to alleviate the distress of large numbers of poor peasants. So why he visited Champaran was to, uplift, elevate, and uplift. All right, or bring about positive changes. Okay, in the lives of poor peasants. Okay, so this was the typical Gandhi pattern. His politics were intertwined with the practical day to day problems of the millions. So, this is how Gandhi usually, his style is, all right, Gandhi's style, typical, right? So, be it politics, be it problems that people face in their daily lives, they are all interlinked. Intertwined means, knotted. They are knotted. They are bound with each other, right? So, this is typical Gandhi's pattern. Because of his visit to Champaran, he was able to, seek justice for the Indian farmers from the British landlords, and gradually he started. That was the first stepping stone towards freedom movement. All right, and then gradually several other movements started. Right, Dandi March, Quit India movement, and so on. If you remember history that you have learned in class 10, right, 9 and 10. All right, Okay, so his was not a loyalty to abstractions. Abstractions means, it's just not a concept, like having a thought or idea in his mind, but not practically, fulfilling it or working towards achieving it. All right. So whatever he did was not just an idea, it was a loyalty to living human beings. This means that whatever he did was not because he had thought of, doing something. He actually came to Champaran to help, the distressed farmers, or to bring about upliftment or positive changes in the lives of those human beings or those Indian farmers. All right, so it was like, rather than being giving importance to one's own concept, he gave his service, or he was being loyal to human beings. All right. Okay. In everything Gandhi did, moreover, he tried to mold a new free Indian who could stand on his own feet and thus make India free. So, whatever Gandhi did, there was like, a positive changes that one could see in the Indian people. All right. He was shaping a free Indian, a new free Indian who could stand on. That means who could be self-reliant, who could take his own decision, one who could, be independent. All right, one who could be self-sustained. All right, and thus, if the person is independent, then surely one person and many people could contribute in making India free, thus make India free. All right. So early in the Champaran action, Charles Freer Andrews, the English pacifist means peace lover, all right, who had become a devoted follower of the Mahatma, came to bid Gandhi farewell before going on a tour of duty to the Fiji Islands. Fiji Islands is in South Pacific Ocean, right? So it's a group of an island, right? Uh, okay, so Charles Freer Andrews was very much in Bihar, and during his stay there in Champaran, he had been observing Gandhi at a close quarter. All right, and then because of Gandhi's like a style of dealing with politics and uplifting the poor people or the Indians, uh, Charles Freer Andrews became a devoted follower of Mahatma Gandhi. All right, so before he had to go on a tour of duty to Fiji Island, but before he went, he came to say goodbye to Gandhi, to beat Leonard, to say goodbye. All right, uh, and Gandhi's lawyer friends thought it would be a good idea for Andrews to stay in Champaran and help them. So it was not only Gandhi who was there, but Gandhi was also accompanied by a group of lawyers like Rajendra Prasad and those famous lawyers mentioned in your text, Maulana Mazrul Haq and all those. All right. So they thought that if Charles Freer Andrews stayed back in Champaran, it would be more helpful for the Indian people or the Indian lawyers or Gandhi himself, you know, and bringing about changes in positive changes, all right, in the lives of poor people or Indian farmers. Andrews was willing if Gandhi agreed. Even Gandhi, Charles Freer Andrews was also willing to stay back only if Gandhi said so. If Gandhi said yes, you can stay, means Charles Freer Andrews is going to stay. If Gandhi denied his stay, then he is surely going to go. All right. So Andrew was willing, right? But Gandhi was vehemently opposed. Vehemently means, he opposed strongly, right? So that means Gandhi did not want Charles Freer Andrews to stay back in Champaran to help them, right? He said, who? Gandhi said, you think that in this unequal fight means, the powerful British government and or the British landlords and the poor Indian farmers, right? Uh, it would be helpful if we have an Englishman on our side. This shows the weakness of your hard. The cause is just, and you must rely upon yourselves to win the battle. You should not seek a prop in Mr. Andrews because he happens to be an Englishman. Now, Gandhi says that, like the reason why he did not want Charles Freer Entry to stay back and help them. All right. The reason he says was because Charles Freer Andrews was an Englishman, the people, especially the lawyers, must have thought that it would be, beneficial for them, all right, um, to have a support or to have the help from Mr. Andrew. But Gandhi denied because it was the fight between them and the British government. All right, so seeking a help in the form of Andrews or an outsider would be like showing your own weakness. All right. Okay, so he says that it is our fight, it is our battle. We must face the battle. We must fight the battle without seeking any outsiders' help. All right. He had read our minds correctly, Rajendra Prasad comments, and we had no reply. Gandhi, in this way, taught us a lesson in self reliance. Now, this means Gandhi had read our minds correctly, means Rajendra Prasad meant to say that Gandhi had understood you know uh, the mentality, the thinking capacity of the Indian people and their problems. All right, so he had understood, and we had no reply. So Gandhi, in that way, not seeking help from Charles Freer Andrew, had taught the people of India, or especially the people in Champaran, how to be self-reliant. Self-reliant means self-sufficient, independent or self-supporting. All right, without depending on any other. All right, self-reliance, Indian independence, and help to sharecroppers were all bound together. So through this chapter, through this Champaran episode, Indians becoming self-reliant and independence of India, and helping or justice delivered to Indian sharecroppers were all connected, all bound together. All right. So in this chapter, Gandhi not only delivered justice to sharecroppers, and he also taught Indian people to be self-reliant through the example. All right, and with regard to Indian independence, only after arriving in Champaran he had learned, that the Indian people are very much bullied or underestimated by by outsider, that is Britishers. So that was the stepping stone or turning point in Gandhi's life towards freedom movement. All right. So with these, we have come to the end of the chapter. All right. Okay.